despite the availability, you guys can go now. Despite the availability of various modes of transportation, South African transport is still plagued with several challenges, as we've just heard from our intrepid team. Reporter Govan Whittles is today engaging with South Africans from all walks of life, looking into how deep they have to go into their pockets to reach their destinations. You've just heard our numbers. The organisation Undoing Tax Abuse is where we find him, at their headquarters in Randburg. Govan, good afternoon to you. So we've been looking at the price of commuting on public transport this morning. Trains won hands down today, but the experience was negative. What about the cost of using highways and I guess also air travel?
Well, Jeremy, as you know, South Africa has some of the best road infrastructure on the African continent. We're often lauded for that, but exactly how much does it cost the average commuter, and by how much have these prices increased due to the upgrades to the infrastructure? We'll find out about that. Now, let me bring in Wayne Duvenage. You're with the organization Undoing Tax Abuse, formerly the opposition to Urban Tolling Alliance, and you've looked at exactly how much extra it's costing the ordinary motorist over a period of time with the introduction of the gantries.
Yeah, look, it is capped at under, I think, 400 Rand, or it was 450. Remember, initially the toll fees were set at 60 cents per kilometre, and through the social pressure it came down to 30 cents. The question we've got to ask ourselves is, without the social pressure, how much of those fees would have come down, and what would they have done with that extra money? So there's no doubt, Govan, that it is costing society and motorists in South Africa, and certainly in Gauteng, more than it should when it comes to tolling of these freeways.
And have you been able to put a figure on that over the last 5 years?
Well, the government has successfully taken just over around about 4.5 billion Rand from motorists, but that was just about 30% of what they actually billed. Had they got it right, there would have been an amount of about 15 billion Rand over this first 5 years of tolling, and that is a massive amount of money. When you think that this road infrastructure should have only cost 9 billion Rand to build, they double paid, and that's another issue that's making the cost of transport in this country a lot more expensive. The cost of road construction, and we know the Competition Commission found the construction industry guilty. The problem is, why did we pay 18 billion instead of around 9 billion, which is where we've priced this?
Yeah, and 4.5 billion that's coming out of taxpayers' pockets. Let's move on to the air travel. At the moment, we've seen a trend of the cost of airfare, particularly single one-way tickets, coming down. But in this case, SAA being the anomaly. And today, OUTA has applied to the High Court to have Dudu Myeni declared a delinquent director of SAA. I mean, do you think SAA would ever be able to compete with these other airlines in terms of their lower prices, and why?
No, it can't, because government is not known for doing business in a competitive environment. It can, and you see what happens, like Eskom, it's a non-competitive environment. We're becoming fast competitive, and it becomes lethargic. It puts a lot of costs in because the politicians interfere, and we saw exactly that with Dudu Myeni, the state capture process, SAA having to be bailed out by about 10 billion Rand over that period while she was there, and so you have runaway costs with state-owned institutions. So they should really not be in the space of competing with the other airlines who can do it far quicker, far better, because they use technology better. They don't have politicians forcing them to employ certain people or not to retrench when the time is right to retrench, because it's a business decision now. It's not a business decision with SAA. That is why their prices are extremely high, and we're having to bail them out all the time.
Yeah, and of course they can't lower their prices, because if they did that, they would incur more losses. Well, Jeremy, you heard it from Wayne Duvenage. Because of the higher infrastructure or better infrastructure on the roads, we're paying more. But even though on the air travel side, when prices are going down with private industries, SAA is still unable to lower its prices.
Oh, that's the position, Govan Whittles. Thank you. That's